Hey guys, I'm Jaanus. My topic today is how to conquer your fear. And I will do that by giving a handy list of 10 sketch plugins for instantly improving your work quality, love life and world peace. Now, I have good news and bad news. Bad news is, of course, half of this title is a lie, unfortunately. There is no such list of sketch plugins. I wish there was, because then I could just give it to you and we'd all be done here and we go have one more beer together, but that's not how humans work. So this is a talk about humans, largely. But before we go on to the main topic, let's talk about Pipedrive for a moment. nothing to do with the actual main topic. There is nothing to fear about Pipedrive. It's a pretty harmless company, I would say. All we do is we make software for salespeople. We want everybody in the world to be great at sales, individual salespeople, sales teams, sales managers, customers, like the product as indicated by these reviews in all these app directories. And as for the company itself, it's pretty old in internet terms already, founded in 2010, got a bunch of money. The product's available in many languages, countries. We have 85,000 companies using the product. Most companies have more than one user with us. Also, we have more than 500 people working for Pipedrive, most of them in Estonia. So it's a pretty big operation, and most interesting maybe to mention here at this conference, our product design work happens in both Tartu and Tallinn in Estonia, and we are hiring designers and many other roles at both of those locations. So if you're wondering how life and work is like at Pipedrive, we have a booth out there. Go speak with our lovely people, or myself, why not? Let's talk about fear though then. Fear used to be a really important life skill about 50,000 years ago, when the human life mostly consisted of two things, right? It was running away from things that are bigger than you and are trying to chase and kill you, and then chasing things that are smaller than you so that you could eat them, right? That's what life was mostly about back in the day. And that we would hopefully be maybe accomplishing some of the things that I actually originally listed. So having a happier, maybe more successful life and work. So last year, two things happened to me. Both of them were equally wonderful and equally important. One is my second child was born. The other one is I was speaking about my work and life journey with somebody much more knowledgeable and experienced than myself. And I kind of went over, who I am, what I do. What they said really struck me. They said, Jaanus, you have no fear. And that was a really striking thing that they would say me. And I felt that that's, you feel sort of validated when somebody says that to you. So then I started to think about why that is. And I'm not going to tell you how you will conquer your fear, actually, because every life and every story is different. What I will do is, though, share 3 kind of past chapters, which I started to think about the topic. I found them relevant. So I speak about how I cleared my mind, how I became a duck, and then how I learned to go far. So first let's talk about cleaning my mind. Again, referring a lot back to what Jaanus said before. Let's talk about fear and news, very obvious topic these days. So this is what news looks like to many of us these days. We read it on our mobile devices, because we do most of our things on mobile devices these days. And so there are a lot of highly paid people in the world that Jaanus referred to, whose job it is to make us fearful and sheeple. And it is the more we are that, the more they are successful. So we have to be bound by that, maybe not. So the thing I want to call out in this news reading experience is I really care about what's happening in the world. I read a lot of news. At the same time, what's key element of this news is, do you notice what's the most saturated element of this page is? What's the most salient color? It's not the news themselves, it's these comment things. I hate comments. There is no good way to say it otherwise. I don't think anything good has ever come out of comments on the internet. They are toxic and they should just go away. They should disappear. Nothing good literally has ever come out of them, at least in this kind of news sites. But they are useful to the media because they turn us into sheeple and they drive clicks and money, and that's just how the business works. But I don't have to be bound by that. Is there anything I can do about that? Turns out a few years ago, Apple released an update to their platform where you can basically make apps to clean up this kind of this here. And so on the left is what the news looks like on your device. On the right is what it looks like on my device. There is no ads, there is no comments. So it turns out you can make apps to clean up the experience, basically, which is what I did. So I made an app. If you're interested, go get it. But that's not really the key point. Sure, like if you want to come along for the journey, it doesn't cost anything. Also, it's the comment removing part is free and will be. But what I want to point out here is this model. So this is. I found this model incredibly useful in many situations in life, but also for this news reading in particular. So this is called a graph of victim accountable behaviors. So on the bottom there's victim behaviors, on the top there's accountable. The question really that this is answering is, is the world happening to you, and are you a victim of that situation, or are things happening in the world because of you? You have more choice in this than you realize, and what you can do is be like Janno, do what Janno said. Be intentional about this stuff. Avoid toxic stuff in life, basically, is another way to put it. So sure, like one call to action here is, if you want to clean up comments in particular, check out that. But more than that, as a designer, think about what are some other places you can clean up your own life and help others do that maybe also. So. This is another way to say the previous slide in a more short way, basically. So if you imagine the world to be in a particular way, don't just expect somebody else to make it. Go ahead and make it yourself. And Gandhi never actually said those particular words, but there's people who say, he kind of meant this thing and it fits my story. So there you go. So let's talk about ducks now. I actually have a prop right here. So that's a big version. It's a little guy here. I actually keep this around, not all the time, but sometimes when I want to remind myself of the story, I keep around the duck. So if you imagine how this rubber duck glides along the water, it's pretty smooth. It just goes on the water. How does a real duck work? How does a duck actually move on water? Let's look at the real duck. So the kind of on the surface experience, it glides nicely. But if you imagine where kind of all the momentum comes from, where is the engine? It's the feet paddling underwater, right? What is that feet? That feet is your fear, if I may say so, some big words. So you want to kind of project some kind of image of yourself or your work to the world, and you accomplish this, the model for that is like you are kind of this duck who's gliding on the water, and you present kind of a smooth image of yourself. Behind that, there are those things that I mentioned before. There are all these fears, anxieties, doubts, uncertainties, and things which are the paddling of your feet, which takes you to above the water picture. So this is what you present to the others. And so interesting things start to happen, because then you think about the world and you look at other people, and for the other people, you only see the above the water part, right? You don't really think about, until you do think about, what is actually under the water for everybody. So I realized I'm a duck, and so are you all. Like if you look around the room, we are all a bunch of ducks, basically. That's all we are, right? And so this is a model for both personal experience, but also in design work. Like if you're struggling, I know I'm struggling all the time to make something good, actually, right? And you look at other people's work, and you realize they only show you the good stuff, right? But nobody mostly doesn't show you all these drafts and all this shit design they went through to get the actual good stuff, right? But once you realize that's how it works for everybody, it's kind of liberating. So, what's more awesome than a duck? It's a duck surfing on top of another duck, right? So if you think about sports like surfing, maybe like skateboarding also, snowboarding, what's the key concept in those sports? It's balance, right? Let's talk about balances. One professor once told me a very useful story about the balances, which doesn't really sound right for a university class, but I will share it with you anyway, because it was very useful. So if you imagine a party why not UX TARTU after party tonight, right? So the most important question you go there, you ask yourself, of course, is how much should I drink? What's appropriate, right? Is it 0? That's what your mom tells you, sure, but Jaanus, don't drink anything, right? But if you imagine yourself being sober in the company of a bunch of drunk people, like, are the jokes all really all that funny, right? Are you having the best time you can have, right? On the other hand, if you drink too much, what happens? Like you tell all these stupid things, you are disgusting and throw up, and that's not fun either, right? So what's the balance? It's nothing more than kind of a right spot between two extremes. And in design work, you realize there are a lot of those actually. So I'll just give you a few examples. So are you operating in the world of humans and understanding them, or producing pixels? Designers kind of operate along the spectrum, but where is a kind of correct point for that? Getting more technical, do we work in the kind of pixel space of design, or actually kind of on the code level, how actually things actually work? There's an interesting one which I call usability and visibility. So the visibility part is when you are working in, I would call it marketing design. So you want to stand out in the crowd, you want to sell something to somebody, you need to be very noisy. You need to, like, if you're making a website, you need to think about SEO and promotion and all that stuff. On the usability side, you have already sold something to somebody. You don't need to sell them anything. You need to make the product actually work. And there's different kind of tools you use on this spectrum. As a designer, this is very familiar, right? Like, do I ship my thing, or do I still keep like noodling around for like 6 months or whatever? Also, if you're working with data, do you look at numbers, or do you look at the kind of stories? Exactly like Ina told us a moment ago. And so the fear aspect of it was, when I was a few years ago, I thought I'm missing out. I was really fearful. I looked at all the successful people whom I respected. I saw that they're really operating well in all these balances. Like they know what to do. They know what's always the right thing to do in each project. And I was fearful that there's like a book somewhere that's hidden from me, but they have read, I have not read, right? They know all the secrets, how to do that. I don't know the secrets. And then a time came when I suddenly realized there is no book, right? So it's your job as a designer, a modern designer, you could say, to actually figure out these balances. So when I think about the big fails that I and the people around me have had in design projects, are they because we didn't have enough design skill or talent? No, never about that, or very rarely. Mostly it's about the team, the stakeholders, everybody working together, not having a good understanding of what is all this stuff, right? And what are all these balances we have in our particular project? You notice, I'm not putting in actual kind of sweet spots here. I'm not telling you what's the right one, because I can't. I don't know what's your work about. This is just a random sample of balances. There's like, 100 of them, or many more at least than on this slide. So I couldn't find a good quote from Gandhi about ducks and stuff, or I just made one up here for myself. Just be kind to other people and figure out balances. So the third story is about going far. So if you look for information on the internet about what is UX, just coming from the outside, you will find many diagrams of stuff circling around, and then notice one thing, right? UX is always in the middle there. It's the most important thing. Is it really? Is it really? So if this kind of thinking goes too far, you might say, you will end up with stuff like this. So what this is, for those who don't know Estonian, so there are government IT applications that we are very proud of, that we sell outside, but like if you look at the actual software, it can always be better, right? And so there's a group of designers who looked at this stuff and said, what the problem is of these companies or government agencies making that is that they don't have good design for this kind of stuff. So we are going to make them some good design, and then here's now some good design for you, without ever, being asked to do so. So as an exercise, it's a great thing to do. We should all do that once in a while. But kicking the door open and handing it over, giving advice like this without being asked, it reflects this kind of thinking on the previous slide. The problem actually the lack of design. Maybe it is, but could very well be that there was an intentional decision of, we have other priorities to focus on right now, so we don't do that. So, if you look at how other people think about themselves, like product managers, for example, it's exactly the same kind of stuff, right? So we are not going to get very far if we all keep making this kind of Venn diagrams about our work, right? So if you think about the duck model and padding again, I find that the more useful and practical way to think about design and organizations and how we should all work together basically is to have this kind of model. There's a question mark in the middle. Who can tell me what that is? It's not a trick question, it's a very simple answer. What's in the middle? So if you just look at one group of people working together or one company, it's leadership actually. It's plain and simple, good old leadership of people working together. And then all these groups, you see, there is no UX even. It's like UX is too fancy word sometimes for me. So I just call it research and design, and there's all these other things around here. So all there is leaders of all these different groups. Maybe there's a single leader who is very good in all those disciplines, but more often than not, you actually have large groups of people represented by leaders who then work together on this stuff. So as a designer, if I think about in terms of this, previous diagram of UX in the middle, I get very quickly to a toxic place of thinking of, I'm a great designer, I do all this great stuff. The only problem is all these other idiots who just don't get it, right? That's not very useful. So a more useful question to ask, I find, is, what's the definition of a leader also? I find it very practical to think about leadership of a leader is somebody who has followers. That's it. That's it. You don't need any title, you don't need any money, you don't need anything. Not a position. All you need is some people who believe in you in some form and who follow you along your journey. So first you need to ask yourself, going back to our conquering your own fear of, you need to have some sort of destination in mind. You need to have some sort of journey. You ask yourself then, what is that journey? How do I express that journey? How do I take some other people, some other followers along with me on that journey, inside my group maybe, If it's a company, maybe you don't need like 1,000, followers on Instagram or Dribble or whatever system. You can have 2 followers, but like if those 2 followers are your boss and your boss's boss, then you will get very far, right? So that's kind of it, I think. So the summary, if something is called an African proverb, it just means it's actually some random stuff somebody made up somewhere, but it sounds good. I believe in this, really. This, again, represents this previous model. It says, go alone if you want to go fast, but if you want to go far, really take those other people along to your journey is another way of putting this. So, all those 3 stories put together, be the change yourself, find the balances and go together. And of course, like any design, I didn't invent any of this stuff. All this is just a retelling of other people's stories. So in very tiny print, which you can't see here, I put a bunch of links. So if you're interested, look up the materials later or just ask for me. I'll send you some more stuff to dig in. That's it. Thank you.